Hi everyone, thanks for coming along to today's Climate Services for Agriculture webinar for the Victorian, Mallee and South East South Australian pilot region, funded through the Australian Government's Future Drought Fund. I'm Kylie Dunstan from FarmLink and we're working with BOM and CSIRO on the CSA customer engagement part of the program. We've got Luke Shelley from the Bureau of Meteorology's Ag program as our presenter today, but first up we'll hear from Fiona Best from Birchip Cropping Group with an update on the Drought Innovation Hub. Before I hand over to Fiona, I'll just remind everyone that today's webinar is being recorded and will be posted publicly with links available to watch it later on. You can hand on to your friends if you like. Now there'll be plenty of time for questions and answering at the end of the session, but if you just pop them into the Q&A panel as you come up with the ideas and the questions, feel free to put them in and we'll get to those a little bit later. And we also have a poll which we'll launch a little later in the webinar for you to respond to as well, which would be really good. So Fiona, over to you.
Thanks, Kylie, and thanks for the invitation to be part of today's session. Yes, my name's Fiona Best. I'm the CEO at the Birchip Cropping Group, and Kylie has asked for me to talk a little bit about the Drought Innovation Hub that is being put together in Victoria. So I guess at this stage, the University of Melbourne have been awarded the hub, the Drought Innovation Hub in Victoria, and that is being led by Professor Tim Reeves and Ruth Nettle. And look, what's really exciting about the Victorian Hub is that there's a real regional presence across Victoria, and that is being delivered through 5 regional stakeholders. So the Southwest is being represented by Southern Farming Systems, another farming systems group. The Southeast is being represented by Gippsland Food and Fibre. The Northeast is being represented by Riverine Plains, another farming systems group. And in the Northwest, we've got ourselves, the Birchip Cropping Group, representing the broadacre sector. And then also based out of Mildura is the Mallee Regional Innovation Centre, and they are focusing on a lot of the horticultural innovations that happen in that area. So while the University of Melbourne is the lead agent for the Victoria Drought Innovation Hub, we have a really strong partnership with the regional presence represented by each of those groups. Also key partners in the hub are Agricultural Victoria, as well as 3 other universities. So we have La Trobe University, Deakin University, and Federation University. So as many of you will be aware, there are 8 drought innovation hubs being put together across Australia, and all look slightly different, but each working in their own way to represent their region in the best way possible. And I guess what BCG are really excited about is the fact that we get a new way of tackling drought resilience in a very collaborative new way, where we get to work with multiple partners, multiple stakeholders to I guess address some of the challenges represented by drought. And the other good thing about it is trying to address those issues before we're in drought. That's probably a key element that sits behind the Drought Innovation Hub initiatives. And so that's something that we're really looking forward to, is being able to consult regionally and understand what each region is needing and the issues that are being faced by each region, and then working collaboratively with a whole range of stakeholders to address those issues, but and also having the flexibility to have that interaction with the hub that can say, okay, well, this is an issue for the northwest and the south west of Victoria, so you as regional nodes can work together with the hub on a particular priority, whereas there might be issues that expand right across all of the stakeholders within the hub. So yeah, look, it's a new innovation that the federal government have put in place as part of the Future Drought Fund. And I guess I should say that the establishment of these hubs is just part of a suite of initiatives that the federal government are putting together. And Luke is here today to talk about the element that he is involved in with the climate services for agriculture component. And there's 9 others that sit alongside that. And what we're hoping is that all of the initiatives that are happening within the Future Drought Fund will channel, or some of them will channel and use these hubs within each state as a bit of a conduit, to use the networks that are established to deliver really positive outcomes for the farmers and the communities, and obviously the landscape that we're going to be working in. So from a Northwest Victoria perspective, we're really happy to be linking in with this particular pilot project that Luke will be talking about, because it fits within our patch, and we'll obviously be using our regional node capacity here at the Birchip Cropping Group to help support the delivery of that tool that's being developed for farmers in our region. And yeah, so I'm excited to hear Luke talk today about the work that he's been doing and how it will support our farmers, and then also how it might link into the work of the state-based hub that the University of Melbourne are leading, but Birchip Cropping Group are a part of, how we can use those linkages to support information delivery going forward. So look, if anybody's got any questions about how the hub is going to operate, it's early days, but by all means, contact the Birchip Cropping Group or any of the regional partners that are involved in the hub, or contact Tim Reeves or Ruth Nettle, who are the co-directors of the hub. Yeah, we're very much interested in what people are thinking, but as I said, it's early days, and we're very optimistic about how, what the opportunities will be coming out of the Future Drought Fund and the hub and the other initiatives that are part of that. And obviously there'll be an evolution moving forward about what it looks like and how it works. But certainly here in Victoria, in Birchip, and from the Birchip Cropping Group perspective, we're very optimistic and positive about the flow-on implications for our farmers and our communities. Kylie, is there anything else that you would like me to touch on?
No, I think that's a really good update, Fiona. Thanks very much for that. And Luke, if you're ready to go, we might hand over to you.
I am. Thank you very much. And thanks, Fiona. I think that was a really great introduction, and particularly I think those points on this is one of a series of investments that the federal government has made. And like Fiona with the innovation, drought resilience and innovation hubs, this is the beginning for us as well. So it's early days. So everything I show you today, even though we have done some work over the last 6 months, today is actually all about trying to entice you to come along and give us some more feedback. And this is an opportunity to shape what we do from here on in. So I'd be really interested to get your questions and feedback as we go through. And as Kylie said, if you want to pop things in the Q&A or the chat, please do that as we go, and then I'll make sure that there's plenty of time at the end for us to go through some of those questions. So I'm going to start sharing my screen. Just bear with me for one moment. Look, the first thing I would really like to do, and it is a real privilege, to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land. Now, I'm here in Melbourne today, so I'm actually on the lands of the Bunurong and Wurundjeri peoples of the Eastern Kulin Nation. But I recognise also that there are several traditional landowners in the region that we're talking about today, being the Mallee and Mildura Sunraysia across into southeast SA and the Riverland. So I really want to pay my respects to their elders, past and present. We support Australians with information that they need to live within their natural environment, and so we really want to pay respect to the knowledge that's embedded forever in Aboriginal custodianship of our country. Today, I'm going to talk you through one of the Future Drought Fund projects, which is currently known as Climate Services for Agriculture. Climate Services for Agriculture is all about a portal, an online portal to be able to deliver climate information to you. When I say climate information, that includes historical information, future projections, and seasonal forecast information. That's what we're aiming to put into the portal as we go. I'm going to take you through a little bit, though, about what the drivers for this are and where we've come to today. And then I'll talk you through what we've done for the work so far in this project over the last 6 months. But then I really want to, I guess, the take-home message is that this is just the beginning and that we're really keen on getting your input to co-design what we do over the coming 12 months and the subsequent investment in this program over the next 2 or 3 years. And we'll have plenty of time for questions at the end. So the program itself is the engagement with rural communities suggests that producers are interested in a better understanding of climate risks and opportunities in the regions that they operate. Agriculture aspires to become a $100 billion sector by 2030. And unless we find ways to better manage climate risk and our opportunities in that and find better opportunities in that space, that's unlikely to be achieved. The goal of the CSA is, of the Climate Services for Agriculture, I should say, and I apologise in advance for being guilty of using acronyms, but it's all about raising awareness of climate resilience risks and opportunities for farming businesses. We're part of the Future Drought Fund, which is what Fiona mentioned earlier. So one of the things that we're really keen on doing is collaborating with the hubs to co-design and deliver this service. There are other services that will come off what we produce as the Climate Services for Agriculture portal. So the portal itself will host a whole range of data and information. There is another I guess, a sister project called the Drought Resilient Self-Assessment Tool. That's under a separate contract, and some of you might have already been exposed to that, but that will be another tool that will come off the top of the Climate Services for Agriculture portal. We'll be working closely with them over the next couple of years as well. So that is another topic that, whilst I won't talk about that today, certainly welcome any questions at the end. But that you'll probably find that when people talk about Climate Services for Agriculture, they'll also, in the same conversation, mention the Drought Resilient Self-Assessment Tool, which the acronym people are using for that is called DRSAT, so you might hear that. There's also investment in supporting drought resilience leaders and farm business resilience programs to uplift skills and adoption. And we see that the Climate Services for Agriculture will be part of a tool set that will help support that as well in the future. I said this earlier, and I'm going to probably reiterate this point on several occasions. The service that we want to design will be designed for all farmers and their advisors. It's not a service for researchers, although I've got no doubt that it will be useful for researchers. It is a service for people who make decisions about their livelihood and their business. And that's what it's all about. And so we really, and when I say all farmers, we're aware that, you know, there's some people who are really know a lot about climate and weather. There are some people who know a lot about their land, and there's everyone in between. And we want to make sure that we're accounting for everyone. And this is an accessible information source for anyone who's a farmer or advisor in Australian agriculture. So where have we come to, and what's the real driver for federal government investment, I guess, not only in the Future Drought Fund, or not only in this program, but more broadly in the Future Drought Fund, I should say. This is just an extract of the state of the climate, and actually there's my first blunder, and I'll admit freely that my colleague Mike, who's on the line, actually gave this presentation to our farming friends in southwestern Australia yesterday, and I have overlooked that I did not change the text to comment on southeastern Australia instead of southwest Australia. So that's a bit embarrassing, but I think the message here is that we're talking about reasonably significant decreases in growing season rainfall in the southwest, but also in the southeast, but as it says, in the southwest as well, over the last 20 years. So that's on the rainfall front. But I guess one of the key things to, it's not universal, and as I'm sure you would all be aware, managing and operating farms and advisory businesses across the regions, that rainfall changes are quite spatially variable and temporally variable as well. So that there's no real blanket statement that can say that that's happened everywhere, but we know that there's been fairly widespread changes. If we talk about temperature as well, we know that, and again, this is just an extract from the State of the Climate report that the Bureau and CSIRO put together every couple of years. Again, what we've experienced in this country is that extreme heat events and those broad-scale heat waves are increasing. Some of you might recall that a couple of years ago now, we did a project called the Climate Guides, and we travelled around the country, and we were hosted by BCG to do a workshop and understand again what are some better ways that we can present climate statistics for agriculture. So this is just a bit of an extract from the Mallee guide, but sort of going back to that point about rainfall at Birchip Post Office, average growing season rainfall decreased by about 48 millimetres when you compare to the period 1989 to 2018, which is the blue bars, and the orange bars, compared to the previous period, which was 1959 to 1988. And we know that that's if you have a look at that chart on the left there, you can see, quite a discrepancy between the blue and orange bars in March, April, May, which is your autumn, I guess, sowing time and that break. So that's a reasonably significant change for broadacre cropping. Similarly around Mildura, and I appreciate that this is showing Mildura post office rainfall, but I am aware that, and we didn't get to this in the climate guides, even though there were requests, and we will be looking to address this in the climate services for agriculture, in that the irrigation areas around Sunraysia, Mildura, over into the Riverland are less so dependent on rainfall where in the location, and more so dependent on those water allocations and entitlements that come from rainfall further afield. But nonetheless, still, even in Mildura, there's been some decrease in rainfall over the growing season. I guess again, though, look, just to reiterate though, that I've chosen these couple of graphs, but I can, there are graphs that show very little change. And if we go probably further south than the broader region we're talking about today, like southern, certainly south of the Wimmera, Western Victoria, southwest Victoria, and then south, the very lower southeast of South Australia, generally speaking, there hasn't been the same types of changes there. So we know, again, changes are different in every location, and they have different local impacts based on the industries that are present there. I've just presented this, the autumn break. It's always a really hot topic for discussion. This really just presents the statistics that we know for the last 30 years, which is kind of on average, you're looking at in the eastern parts around Birchip, most of the time, the autumn break is sort of falling in around about the last couple of weeks of May. And I know that that might not necessarily have been the case this year, if at all. And then even later, the further you go west. We didn't actually do, in the climate guides, we didn't actually do an analysis of whether or not the break had been getting later or earlier, or vice versa, or not changed at all over time. But that's certainly something that, based on your feedback and more broadly of agriculture more generally, if that's something that you think is a worthwhile exploration for us to look more into and provide some better information on that, then by all means, that's exactly the sort of question that we'd really like to understand from you. Frost is another one. So just sort of moving on to temperature. Actually, Mildura and Birchip both showed the same. There's been about 8 more spring nights of potential frost. I say potential frost because these graphs are produced based on our weather station data, and our weather station we call potential frost is 2 degrees at the weather station, which generally speaking means 0 on the ground surface. So we call that potential frost. This doesn't actually mean that a frost occurred on any particular property. It's just the potential, and we know that there's a whole lot of factors that go into frost, but this still at least gives a bit of an indication of where you can see the late winter and early spring. Again, the orange bars, where the orange bars protrude above the blue bars, shows where over the last 30 years there's been an increase in the number of potential nights of spring frost, 8 more compared to comparing the last 2 30-year periods. On average, though, I guess we do need to keep in mind that there was quite a lengthy period of dry conditions through the last 30 years, including the millennial drought. And on average, the Mallee had 4 more spring frost nights following a dry winter. So that would definitely account for some of the variation that we've seen there between those 2 periods. And I think the last one, and again, this is just for Mildura Airport, but it does show a pretty good trend. And look, this trend is something that we do see across quite a lot of the continent in most locations. But this is the number of days over 38 degrees. And what's happened in Mildura over the last 30 years, comparing it to the previous 30 years in the 60s, 70s and 80s, is that there's been 6 more days per year on average where the temperature's gotten to at least 38 degrees or higher. So in the 60s, 70s and 80s, there were on average 10 days a year above 38 degrees. And now in the last 30 years, there's been on average 16. So I guess the message there is that there's more days of potential heat stress for animals, potential heat stress for plants that you need to consider as part of your business activities. And again, look, there's some other data there. Since 1989, unprecedented temperatures of 46 degrees have been recorded 6 times. There's been 10 days in a row or more of over 38 degrees occurred in 1959, but that didn't occur again until 2007, 2009 and 2018. So that recent period again has had increases in those long kind of heat waves over 10 days or more. So that's really about the drivers and what we've observed so far. And this is really just a snapshot from the state of the climate, which is a bit of a summary of what the predictions are going forward based on the future projections that we have. And so really we are expecting that there'll still be that warmer activity, more heat waves, fewer cooler days, heavy rainfall to become more intense, cool season rainfall declines in southern and eastern Australia to continue. But we do know with rainfall, again, just reiterating the point that it's highly variable. So even with the modelling that we have, it is very difficult for us to pull out any really clear patterns over probably the next 10 years. And so that's going to be part of the discussion as well about how can we actually present information to you that is actionable and meaningful to you in an uncertain environment. And that's part of the discussion that we want to have through the Climate Services for Agriculture program. So I'll tell you now about the story so far and in the last 6 months. So the Department of Agriculture, Water and Environment, who are administering the Future Drought Fund, have asked the Bureau and the CSIRO to produce this portal. What we've done is, rather than coming out, and I know that the agricultural community is generally over-surveyed, and there's plenty of us who have worked with you and talked with you over the years, that we can put something together without having to hassle you. So, and this is what I'm about to show you is what we've put together from the brains trust, so to speak, at the Bureau and CSIRO. And so everything that I show you from this point onwards today in the presentation is up for grabs. I'm going to present to you where we're at today and what our understanding is. And if there's anything that I say or show you today that you have any feedback on or you think's not quite right, this is the start of, not the only, this is the start of an opportunity for you to correct that, help us refine our thinking, help us refine the products and services that we really want to deliver to you. So here is our summary of what we know about farmers' needs. Farming is all about decision making. Decisions have financial, social and environmental implications, significantly so more than the general user of climate and weather information in the capital cities. And that farmers are trying to maximise every opportunity. All decision timeframes are important, from operational, from hours to days, tactical, weeks to seasons, and strategic, years to decades. And farmers have an appetite for making informed decisions. It's not about making guesses. It's actually about having the very best information to hand to make the best decision you can at the time. We understand that it's hard to find, interpret, and trust information. There's a very broad range of sources out there in the marketplace. So information has to be reliable and relevant, and it has to be from a reputable source to be trusted. Sources of information are fragmented and often don't provide the whole picture, and that means that there's a whole lot of work that a farmer has to do to get the information that they want and get it in the shape that makes sense to them. And forecasts and trends are frequently, I guess, more so presented in a scientific fashion than they are in an agricultural decision-making process way. And that creates some disconnection there with the information directly, not being directly linked to the decision you're making. And as I said earlier, there is actually an overwhelming number of different sources in the marketplace. We also know that collaboration is the key to the use of that information to decision making and any adaptation as a response of that. Primary producers collaborate extensively with peers, advisors, financiers, and supply chain partners. Advisors deliver value by providing insights relevant to their circumstances, to farmers' circumstances, and producers and want their advisors, extension practitioners, and scientists to all collaborate together and with them. We did test this with only a small number of people, and I'll just sort of comment that we do the process that we're going to go through with climate services for agriculture, and again noting that people are tend to be over surveyed. We don't want to go out and then have to hassle lots and lots of different people to get the answer. So the approach that we're going to take is to sample smaller groups of people. And when I say small groups of people, I'm talking maybe a dozen or so at a time to get the key thinking and things down on paper that we can then validate. So what I'm showing you now is based on some feedback that we got fairly early on over the last couple of months from just a small handful of farmers from around the country, those who were willing to just give a bit of their time to give us some feedback on where we were at. And this is, again, an opportunity to just validate what I'm showing you and provide. And if you have any comments or questions at the end, please raise them. But the feedback that we've had so far is that farmers seek a central platform or a central location that provides short, medium and long-term forecasts in one location. Farmers are already adapting to responding to short-term opportunities, not so much long-term risk. And in its current form, that what I'm going to show you in a few minutes, the prototype wouldn't be used on a day-to-day basis by farmers. There's definitely a need to cater for mobile devices, and we need to do more to demonstrate the value of long-term climate information to agriculture. And there's just a little quote there, which was directly from one of the farmers that we interviewed in this process. And they said, and I think it's a really good way of summing up probably where we're at today. And it says, it's nice to see the overall trend, but it's not telling me what to do in the paddock. So that's probably where we're at, but we want to change that. All right, so where we want to get to is where people are saying, oh, this is a great tool and this is actually helping me make a decision in the paddock. Now, be it over the next season or be it over the next decade, that's kind of where we're aiming here. And I know that that's ambitious and I know that that will take quite a lot of effort, but that's where we want to go. We also had some other feedback on some of the more detailed aspects of the prototype. So we got some feedback that said, so there's a dashboard, and I'll show you the dashboard in a couple of minutes. And I appreciate I'm telling you lots of stuff without showing you anything right now, but we will get there in a couple of minutes, I assure you. So people tend to like the dashboard idea, but it definitely needs some further refinement. Historical data plays an important role alongside forecasts to validate personal observations and past predictions. And that's something that also came out of the climate guides. Users would like to have some more flexibility to set their own time parameters that are meaningful to their own scenarios. And there's some more work to be done on how we display detailed information and charts and projections and things like that. And again, there's just one of those little quotes from a farmer that says, the dashboard's easy to read, it outlines key points, but I wouldn't use the charts too often. So, you know, again, this is a future drought fund investment. It's a large investment by the federal government. It is taxpayer money. We want to make sure that every dollar that we spend on building a system is going to be valuable and worthwhile. And so this isn't just about telling us what's good, it's also about telling us what's not so good so that we can make sure that we're maximising that investment. So this, and look, at what I've just showed you, again, I just want to reiterate that this is just the beginning. So I'm going to show you the prototype now. And again, everything you see is up for grabs. So the whole idea of what we've put together here is not to say that this is a finished product or anywhere near it. It's more to say this is where we've got to, based on our knowledge today, we're completely open to where this goes. And this is all going to be driven by feedback from agriculture and the farming community from this point on. So here is a, if you're actually inclined, please feel free to grab that link and have a look, and there's a login CSA and demo, but I'm just going to stop sharing this screen and I'm going to jump into the prototype itself. So just bear with me for a sec. Great, hopefully that's all working. Please somebody sing out if it's not. I think it's working. So look, you come in here and there's just the first thing you can do is just type in your location. So I'll type in Birchip. I won't make an assumption that everyone is from Birchip today though, but I'll type in Birchip for respect for Fiona and the BCG support for us today, which we're really thankful for. And absolutely delighted to see BCG part of the new Drought Innovation Hub. Look, when you come in, just so you know, you will experience a little bit of a delay in it loading up. Now that's not going to be like that forever. This is just a prototype. It's not sitting on any super high technology behind it that's going to drive it and make it really snappy and quick. Completely agree that in an operational sense, that sort of delay would not be particularly pleasing for an end user. But again, we'd love to hear feedback on that. So what I've done, you saw me type in Birchip, and what it presents here is what I just alluded to a few moments ago, which is what we call the dashboard. And the dashboard has got a couple of different, I guess, weather and climate parameters. So the green sort of tabs there are for rainfall, and then on the orange ones are for temperature. You can still, over on the right, if you wanted to go to another location, you can still choose that over here, and that sort of just shows you your map. Down the left-hand side is the time steps. So sort of if we just have a look, and I'll just start with this one here, which is annual rainfall. And then what we do is we go down and the first number is historical climate. So the average annual rainfall for Birchip is for the period 1961 to 1990 was 366 millimetres. The current climate, what we're calling the current climate for the period 1991 to 2020, was 330 millimetres, which is a drop of about 36. And I know that that is a little bit different to the numbers I showed you based on the climate guides. The reason for that is that actually what we're doing here is this system will, and one of the pieces of feedback we got from the climate guides was, look, that's great, but it's a snapshot in time. Can you make it so that it updates more frequently? So this information will update I think it's going to be every month. Now we know that updating this sort of things daily probably doesn't really matter when you're talking about the long term. Again, having said that, absolutely open to your feedback on what you think is going to make this a usable system for you. At the moment, the plan is for that to update monthly and bring in the very latest observations we have. Then what we do, which we didn't do in the climate guides, and that is to start to talk about future climate. Now, there's a couple of things here. You can select how far ahead based on the climate projections you want to look. You can choose the emission scenario if you're across that information and you want to drill down into a little bit more detail. But effectively, what the system is going to give you is the future projection out to here, 2030, and an idea of what rainfall, average rainfall over the annual period might be like. In this case, it's saying 337 millimetres. Now, you might ask, what are the numbers in the brackets? Well, when we're talking about future projections and forecasts, as I'm sure you're all aware and have experienced, that forecasting is not an easy space. And in terms of, say, our 7-day forecast, as I'm sure you're all aware, it's not perfect. It is very good, but it's not perfect out to 7 days. Our seasonal outlooks are not bad. They're definitely not perfect out to 3 months or so. And so there's a bit of a pattern there. The further you go out, the less certainty there is, and the more it becomes about probabilities. So what we're saying here is that, yes, the best guess is 337 millimetres, and that's indicating not a lot of change over the next 10 years compared to the current climate. But it is showing that the models are showing some variability amongst that. In some cases, much higher, in some cases, much lower. Again, I'm really keen to hear from you today, or if you like, or going forward, if you'd like to be involved in helping us with feedback on this project, how we can portray this information better to you. How can we portray uncertainty and variability? Because that won't go away. That's inherent in future projection modelling and in forecasting in general. So, whilst I'm showing you this information, I don't want you to think, right, this is it, this is what they've produced, and that looks good or doesn't look good. This is completely, everything you see on this page is up for grabs and open to feedback. Now, if I want to, I could click on, and I'll just for argument's sake, I'll click on autumn, and what it'll do is it'll actually open those more detailed charts, and you've got an option there, and this goes all the way back to 1961, and you can see some different information. I won't go into great depth. There's a little bit of commentary there, but effectively that is just a shortcut to the lower part of the page has got those same headings, and you've got the same headings up the top in the right there, where you can click and open that little tab to get some more information either on temperature and rainfall. Again, this is all of these things are what we'd like to have a discussion with you about, what sort of information you'd like to see. There's a couple more things that I'll show you before I jump off this and finish off the presentation. So we've got a good 15 or so minutes of questions. There's a little drop down here called select your commodity. I'm going to open that, and at the moment we've got wheat, and I feel very fortunate that I'm talking to the Mallee and today, because it's a little bit more embarrassing to show that we've only got wheat when you have to talk to someone in the northern beef industry in Queensland. this is not by any stretch of the imagination complete, but our idea here is, the idea behind this is that you'll have a generic dashboard, but some of the feedback we've got has been that, look, it'd be really nice if we could choose our commodity and that this could be tailored to fit our business or our mixed farming or single commodity business, whatever it is. This needs more work, no doubt. We've just sort of had a go here at what this might look like. But again, this is an opportunity for feedback about how we might shape this going forward and learning more about, I'm not pretending for a second that people only grow wheat. We know that you choose from a variety of different variety of different commodities and plants, and also probably several of you are running sheep as well. And again, for the people who are in irrigation areas, having multiple different crops throughout the year and things like that. So look, all I'm saying here is that's an idea. We'd love to hear from you about how we can make that better, or if it's valuable at all. The last thing I want to draw your attention to, and the link so I will make sure these slides will get around to you, so you'll get the link. Prototype is open. You can log in anytime. You can come and have a play, type in your location, have a look through, give us some feedback. So there is a little feedback form there. And if you wanted to, you could very easily type in your comments. There'll be other processes for feedback as well. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to stop sharing this. Going to be back where we were. Terrific. I want to finish with the co-design process. So now that you've seen the prototype, I hope there's enough. I hope I've shown you enough for you to either say, great, that's great, looks like it's on the right path, and keep going, or it's okay, but it needs to go down this direction, and I want to have a say, and we invite that openly. So the co-design process is this. So we're going to have, there's 4 pilot regions that have been nominated by the Department of Ag, and they are North Queensland Dry Tropics, Condamine and Northern Tablelands, today Victorian Mallee and Southeast SA. When we say Southeast SA, it's really the Mallee, the broader Mallee region and the Riverland, and into Sunraysia and those irrigation areas, and Western Australian sheep wheat belt. There's no hard boundaries on these things. Just think of these as a roundabout. We'd be delighted to work with people irrespectively. But what we really want to do is we want to get some input from the main commodities in each region, so that we can make sure that we've covered off a variety of different use cases and needs for information. We want to recruit participants to be involved in activities over the next 12 months. And I'll talk more about that in a moment. And also to attend seminar events hosted in the pilot regions like this one. Now, in an ideal situation, I'd be there in Birchip and give you an opportunity to Birchip or Renmark or Berry or Mildura or wherever it needs to be, to not only just give this presentation, but I think always there's great value in having those follow-up conversations and to talk about a whole range of products and services that the Bureau offers. For obvious reasons, with COVID-19, that's preventing us a little bit at the moment, or more than a little bit at the moment, in doing this. But at the very minimum, we're going to continue to offer these online events. Now, if you're outside of what we call a designated pilot region, we're going to have the opportunity to continue, like I showed you the little feedback form. Doesn't matter where you are in Australia, you can use the prototype. And as we continue to develop it, that will always be open for use and feedback. And there'll be probably less of the sort of target opportunities for face-to-face contact, but certainly feedback via online surveys and things like that. When I talk about the targeted activities, this is just to give you a bit of an idea of what we've been looking for. We want to take an iterative approach. So this isn't about doing something and then saying it's done. This is about doing something, testing it with users, making some changes, going back, testing with users. And so what this looks like is we really like to identify some people who would be willing to give their time, their valuable time, for some one-on-one interviews. And that would be on average about an hour. And the part of that is to go in greater depth than what I'd be able to do, say, in a 1 hour session like this. We can do that in a greater depth in a one-on-one interview. And we want to do like a series of those in each region. And that's to validate and review what we already know. It's also to get feedback on the designs and new features. And then, like I said, to attend these in-region seminars. And look, our estimate is, if you were to sign up for absolutely everything that we're looking to do, and there's no expectation of that. So we want to give you the option, noting that you're all very busy, and particularly noting that certain times of the year are very busy. Opt in or opt out of whatever you want. There's no obligation here that if you put up your hand today that you're locked in for the next 12 months to have to be obligated to come along to these workshops and to have to do 1 hour phone calls every 3 weeks with our design team. It is completely flexible around whatever time you want to give. So we're estimating that the whole lot would take an individual about 20 hours of work spread over a 6-month period. But that would be if you did absolutely everything. And even if you were willing to just give us a one-off 1 hour interview, we would absolutely take that. So this is about getting diversity of thinking, working with as many people we can with the very minimum amount of fuss to you as people who are giving their time. We are very specific about who we need. So we really would like to be working with farmers and advisors, because that's who we're designing this for. But when I say that, we know that we want to work, we know that early adopters play a really big role in driving some of these future tools, but it's really important to remember that we're actually designing this for the majority. So I've just got a little image there of the adoption curve theory, and you'll see there's a couple of in the sort of big humps in the middle that represents the majority. If you're sitting here today and thinking, why should I start using this, or well, I'm a bit skeptical about this stuff, you're the people we want to talk to, because we want you to keep us in check. We want you to give us the reality check, tell us where we're not doing it right. And yeah, of course, we still want to talk to those people who are looking at this and saying, this looks great, I want to give it a go. A whole range of people, but we don't want to isolate ourselves just to one, which sometimes we're a little bit guilty of doing when we design our products and services from science and technology organisations like ours. I've got here, I think I probably have put the wrong email address up, but I think Kylie can correct me in a moment. But if you want to register your interest, I know you've all registered today to be part of this webinar, and we probably will send out some follow-up information. There are 2 ways you can register your interest. The department itself has an email address, droughtresilience@agriculture.gov.au. That's one way. It does go through the department and then gets to us. I think the other way is through Kylie. I think her email is kylie@farmlink.com.au. You can use either, but what we will do over the next week or so is send out some follow-up info. So please don't be too concerned if you can't remember these addresses, the addresses, and there'll be a survey at the end. And I do encourage people to fill that out for us if you wouldn't mind, and that also will tell us who might be interested in working with us closer. Now I am going to turn my camera on and hope that you can see me, and I apologize, the lighting is not great and sometimes the lighting even turns off. So can everyone see me? Can someone, Kylie, confirm or whatnot?
Certainly can, Luke. Yep, no worries at all. I might just launch that poll that we talked about for people to fill in so that they can do that as we go along.
Yeah, and so what I've just opened up the little Q&A, and I apologise I went a little bit longer than I think I promised. So I'm sorry about that. And if you have time, I have time, and I'm happy to hang around for a bit to answer questions. So Tony, thanks for your question. Are you able to change the averages period? So part of the feedback that we have already been given is that people would like that facility. So I showed you in the current prototype that we've chosen the averaging period. We've definitely already had solid feedback that people would like to be able to choose their own. So thanks, that reinforces what we've already heard, and that's definitely something we'll be working on implementing over the coming months. Are you investigating GHG in different crops in these regions? I actually don't know what GHG is, Upul. Would you be able to, are you happy to jump on and just perhaps clarify that question for me?
Yeah, that's, yeah, can you hear?
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, that's greenhouse gas emissions, yeah.
Ah, right. No. Okay. No, we're not doing that in these regions. So we're merely taking the current projections as they are and trying to take that information and, I guess, present it in a way that's more meaningful for decision making. But we're not doing specific investigations into greenhouse gas emissions with respect to different crops.
Okay.
And Tony, I just saw your, was that a follow-up? Note the averages period is for the dashboard. Was that a question or a comment? Oh no, I think I get it now actually, Tony. That you were following up to your original question, weren't you? Which is saying, yeah, gotcha, thanks, sorry. I'm a bit slow sometimes. I appreciate that. Look, we've still got a few minutes, and so if anyone would like to perhaps raise your hand or just jump on with your mic if you wanted to ask anything else.
So yeah, if anyone does want to talk, just raise your hand and then I'll give them access to talk.
And look, happy to answer any questions at all related to the program, other related programs, anything that's on your mind. Craig, I can see you're got your mic on.
Yep. So Craig Warren from Temora.
Terrific.
As a producer and an advisor, my frustrations with forecasting is when we see a good forecast coming through and make some significant decisions and spend a lot of money on it on the back of it, and then it doesn't come off. I've got no problems that the forecast is wrong, but I'd like to know some reasons why that rainfall event didn't happen. So so then I can use that in the future and say so whether I can then start to build some knowledge about those, what I think is a strong forecast or a weaker forecast.
Yep.
Any chance of building some of that into this that we can ask questions or yeah?
That's a really good question. So one of the things that I sympathise and thank you for raising that, and that is something that has been raised with me consistently in my travels around the country, and that is that the feedback that I have been given is that we make forecasts and we don't always get them right, but we just kind of move on to the next one without giving anyone sort of a back brief. One of the what's challenging, so I would love to be able to say yes, we can address that, and be really interested to see how. So one of the challenges is that we do have experts who can provide that background and information on, look, this is what happened and why. It is very hard to make those people available broadly across the country. So how can we meet that challenge in a digital sense? Certainly some of the conversation that we've had or feedback we've had so far is that we might want to take this down the path of allowing sort of a chat function or something like that through the portal. So I'd be really interested to see what if you thought that was a good idea, but definitely one of the pieces of feedback that we've had already, and I think I had a dot point in one of the slides, which was this won't be successful if it's just about putting data and numbers on a page, on a web page. It needs to find a way to help people, I guess, share and have conversations. So thanks for that feedback. And I know that that's probably not a really straight answer for you, but certainly my aspiration and that of the team is that we can find a way to do that a lot better.
Yep, no, thanks for that. Because yeah, like you said, just putting the numbers on the portal, we can sort of access those anyway.
Yep.
And just because it's what's happened in the past, it's not going to be what happens in the future, I suppose.
Correct. Yeah.
And, yeah. And so, you know, as the season evolves, we go, you know, the rainfall events are, you know, like we're seeing at the moment, generally for our location, they're a little bit stronger rainfall numbers than what's been forecast. So if we could then build that into the model and saying, righto, we reckon it might be 120% or where things going for the season, and just be reactive to that.
Okay, thanks. Paul, I can see that your, did you have a question? I can see that your name on the thing, or maybe I can just see everyone's name. Any other questions?
No, I'm right, Luke. Sorry.
Okay, thanks. Sorry for putting you under the spotlight there. Look, please, by all means, if you do have any further questions, and we will be coming back and asking people if they'd like to be involved in future activities. So just to give you a bit of a sense of what that looks like over the coming months, we've got the current prototype I showed you. We actually haven't done any what we call usability testing with farmers. So we would like to, probably in August, find a way to either sit down with you in person or do something over the virtually like this in a one-on-one sense for about an hour to get, and I'm not talking, we don't need to do this with hundreds of people. I'm talking, you know, a handful, like 6 or 8 people to just volunteer their time to for us to take you through that and see what your thoughts are on the current prototype and give us some feedback on what we can improve. The next theme that we'll be starting to look at will be how we introduce seasonal outlooks. So what I showed you today was based on historical information and the start of future projections, but one of the things we want to add before the end of the year, I think, is seasonal outlooks. And when I say introduce seasonal outlooks, this isn't just taking what the Bureau does today and just putting it in this portal. It is about making it tailored to help better understanding and better decision-making in agriculture. And I know already from conversations I've had with plenty of people in the Birchip cropping group and the Mallee region, and more broadly across the country, is that we can do more in that space. We're going to put some things together and then come back to you based on what we already know. So again, we're not starting from scratch here. I've already been given plenty of feedback about how we can improve some of our information presentation. So we're going to do that over the coming months, and I'd be delighted to come back and perhaps present another session like this where I can present some of the new features of the website and get your feedback on those. But outside of that, please, anytime, do feel free to get in touch. It is really important to me and the department and the highest levels of government, I can assure you, that we are working with you and listening to you and making sure that what we're building reflects your feedback, not just building stuff for the sake of building stuff. So please, any way you'd like to be involved, please let me know. And I'm absolutely delighted that Craig, you've dialed in from Temora today. And look, I'll finish there, and I look forward to hearing from some of you. And anytime there's anything more we can do, please sing out. So I'll hand back to Kylie. Thanks, Kylie.
Yeah, thanks, Luke. No, that was excellent. And also, thanks to everyone that came on board today and gave your time to listen in to what's happening. Hopefully we'll get some good connections with you going forward, and we can have plenty of input into this tool, which is really essential for farmers and advisors. So thank you very much. Have a lovely afternoon, and yeah, we'll be in touch with the link for the recording, so feel free to distribute that to other people who may be interested. And thanks also to Fiona for coming on board and giving us an introduction to the Drought Innovation Hub. Thanks very much.